was an accident. My mum was never meant to get pregnant, and people in the family who loved me, mum, they were trying to adopt me out, and so I was looking for ways to build up my self-esteem. And I'd been drunk once before and it was a disaster. But I remember everything was black and I'm thinking, where am I? Somebody grabbed me like on the scruff. And as I kind of got up, I realised, I know where I am. I'm in a fight. Ringing me dad. And I remember him saying to me, mate, do you think you got a problem? And I thought, I would love to know, because I'm getting into fights all the time. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. Either you've got a masculine man or you've got a toxic man.
That's such a good point.
All that toxic is just a man who is undeveloped. I see other men doing cold plunges. I love cold plunges. That's not masculinity. Everyone should be doing it. You don't need to prove yourself.
The more we have strong, well-adjusted men, the stronger our world and society's going to be.
But if men don't step up and lead, man, really, that's how the families are going to flourish. And it's hard. And you can't do it on your own. The lone wolf thing, it's a fantasy.
You had all this stuff, the success, your champion, everything's going. But at the same time, there was nothing.
80% of the men go, how did I not see this?
What would you say was a real man compared to a toxic man?
For me, and this is one thing I believe that will define a man.
Welcome to the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast. Very blessed to have in the studio today someone that I think a lot of people know on the Gold Coast. And probably around the world, I believe. I'm going to introduce a little bit. Former Australian boxing champion.
That's right, yeah.
I think you were top 12 in the world at one stage as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty huge. But obviously that all sounds great, but every one of us has a life and a story. Yeah. And introduce yourself a little bit about who you are, what you're doing now.
Yeah. Hey, mate, thank you. This is an honour and a privilege. Man, this is awesome. So I can't believe I'm here. I'm doing it. This is great. So, married, 7 children, been with my wife since we were teenagers. Took the poor girl to hell and back, and she hanging there with me. And we've got 7 amazing kids, and we've always, I suppose my parents always had their own businesses, so I was always destined to be the worst employee ever. So I've always run my own businesses and just look to create things that have never been done before, either in me or in the world. So that's me in short.
That's awesome. So how do you actually help people right now?
Yeah, right now it's all about levelling up for men, levelling up in their family, their business and their faith. And how we do it for a long time, we run a boxing program for men that never had a fight, which sounds really crazy. but it was always about who they needed to become to step through the ropes. And, it ended up being initiation and validation process, and the boxing was just the vehicle that did it. But these days, now it's an online program that we run. I authored a couple of books, A Rite of Passage for the Modern Man and the Man Alive book. And so how we help them now, it's more about finding their purpose, or as we said, transitioning from one season to another. And for some of those men now, I'm showing them how to monetize it. With the world that we live in now, man, if you're not changing and developing, you're going to be left behind.
Big time.
So there's opportunities everywhere for men that are on purpose, on mission, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, I love that. One of the things you said just then is who they needed to become to step through the ropes.
Yeah.
Go into that a little bit for me.
Yeah. Well, I always say, and I talk about it in my Rite of Passage book, there's the man, and this was a boxing coach, kind of put on me when I was outside the ropes waiting to jump in for a training session, a sparring session. He must have seen the look, the fear. And he goes, there's three sorts of men inside every man. There's the man I tell you I am, there's the man I think I am, and then there's the guy who lives on the inside. And generally you only find that guy, well, him being a boxing coach, was inside that ring when things aren't going your way. So who does that guy need to become? The guy on the inside. And then he said that's the guy you got to make your friend. Not be afraid of him or intimidated by him or talk bad about him. Man, that's you.
Who do we listen to most? Which one of those three?
Oh, the guy on the inside. Yeah. We can all tell a good story. We can spruik. You've only got to flick your phone and go to Instagram, man. There's a lot of phenomenal stories out there.
Yes, there is.
But it's a real guy we want to deal with.
Yeah. So how do you make that guy your friend?
Yeah. Well, there's a multitude of different things. Hence, I take men through a rite of passage, a transition. First of all, you got to know who you're talking to. Who's the guy that's actually who you're dealing with. There's no one way to skin a cat, and I suppose so. It's a bit like something that you asked me. We've all got a story. We've all got a journey, so we've all got a different. Some of us were exactly the same in some areas. Other areas, man, we've had different upbringings, etc. So, I mean, you asked me a question before, and maybe you said, "How the heck did you get into boxing?" or words to that effect, and that's for a long time. And this is probably talking about those three guys. For a long time, people would say to me, "Why do you box?" And I would. With all honesty, I say it's good for my fitness, it's good for my health, it's good for my discipline. The truth, I didn't give a toss about any of those things. I didn't actually even know what was driving me. I didn't know, and I was a professional fighter then. And so, but there was a story, and you said, people say to me, "How did you get into boxing?" And because I don't know, I've never met really too many men say, "Hey, I want to go and learn how to get punched in the head." But I remember, what happened to me. We shifted to a new town. My dad brought another business, fish and chip shop, and we had these pinball machines, and in the fish and chip shop. Back in the 80s, that was normal.
Yep, remember them.
So it attracts a certain kind of clientele during the day. When everyone's at school or at work. So I got to know some of these guys, and they're a little older than me. I was like 14 at the time. I was a little older, and they invited me on a Saturday night to this party. So I thought, oh, great! I knew these guys. I thought they were good guys. They were popular, etc. I thought, great. I remember walking to the party with them, and I thought, mate, I'm in with the cool crowd, like. And I remember walking to the party, going up the side gate. I remember walking through and just seeing the prettiest girls I've ever seen in my life. I remember everyone seemed to be older. It turned out it was an 18th. And I remember a guy giving me a drink, having a beer, and I'd been drunk once before, and it was a disaster. Anyway, I liked the adrenaline though. Anyway, I had a drink, and then it was, I don't know how the time frame was, but I remember everything was black. And I'm thinking, where am I? And then I managed to work out, I must be on the ground, because I could see people's feet everywhere. Then I felt somebody grab me like on the scruff and was helping me up. And as I kind of got up, I realised, I know where I am. I'm in a fight. And I'm back down the ground. And I remember I tried to get away, and I'm on the ground, and I tried to go that way, and there was a paling fence, and I tried to go that way, and there was another paling fence, like I'm in the corner, and all the shoes were kind of facing me. And then I felt the help up again, but I knew what was coming, obviously. So I managed to try and get away, and I looked for those guys that I went to the party with that were my friends. And they were back at the house. And there's probably, I don't know, maybe 30 people all watching me cop a belting by this older guy. He was the popular guy. He's probably about 19 years of age. And these couple of guys were back at the corner of the house watching me cop this belting. And man, I don't know how that ended, but I remember it was a very long walk home. Lonely. And I was just thinking, it was like something got birthed in me. Resentment, anger. My parents loved my parents to bits. And I suppose though I didn't, before I knew what values even were, like loyalty was just of the highest. And I felt like loyalty was broken. And that was like my highest value. If it had been them, I would have jumped in, even though I would have got belted up, I would have jumped in, And that hurt me probably more than anything. So it sort of sent me on a bit of a spiral, And it was actually about 2 years later where what I do is I new set of principles. I always wore shoes that I could either fight in or run in. And I stopped wearing my best clothes out because they always said to get ripped off me. I was always I had a chip on my shoulder. And the biggest thing for that long walk home that night was, I don't know how, but I'm going to get this guy back. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And man, I was humiliated. That's how I felt anyway. And so it just birthed something in me, that chip on my shoulder, man. So after getting into fights every other weekend for about 2 years, my dad opens the bedroom door one Sunday morning, claret out my nose, not good. He goes, "Mate, we've got to teach you how to fight." And I thought, I would love to know, because I'm getting into fights all the time. So that kind of birthed me. He took me down to the gym where he actually fought down in Footscray in Melbourne, and the trainer who taught him was still there, and so that's duck to water. I just got to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting how I think as humans we sort of react to things in different ways. And for you, obviously loyalty was something you thought was important. It's just, you probably thought that's how people lived, normal.
I never even thought. I just thought, that's...
And then so that, because they were disloyal to you, that built up this resentment and harboured, I guess, an anger and a bitterness to want to get back at people in general. Is that...
I don't know, because I always endeavoured to look after the underdog.
Right.
When I was younger, I probably seen a lot of things I shouldn't have seen as a kid, and there was, I seen a lot of violence, and my dad, there was a criminal element to, to where I lived.
Yeah.
And if I look back, I always thought my heroes were criminals. And I heard stories, I heard things I probably shouldn't have heard, but I heard things that you don't lag anyone in. Like if you just do your time and keep your mouth shut. That you proved your loyalty through those kind of things. And it was like, I don't know, as a kid, you just hear things, Yep. My parents never, would never said, "Hey, listen, this is how you do life." But that's what I picked up. I always say environment, it's stronger than willpower. So be very careful the environment that you put yourself in.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Really good point.
But I suppose as we get older, we get the opportunity to make that choice, but some of us don't make it. They just, I always say we got, three, there's almost three choices: the right choice, the wrong choice, or no choice. And that's like, you don't make a decision, like no choice is the worst one.
Yeah. So then you got into boxing, and that, how did it become obviously you enjoyed it from the start.
Yeah.
How did it become something you followed through?
I suppose I was like I'm 16. I did things. I suppose like as at school, I finished school like at 14, and I never learned to read and write at school. I sort of I was suspended quite a few times until the teacher said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I got no idea." They took me to the office and they sent me out, and the first job I got, the only job I could get was a favour of my dad's, was catching chickens. It's like that was the best, and eventually, but I got into other things, and my dad had got me involved in horses, so I ended up getting a job riding truck work, working in stables. Anyway, but what happened? I got this job in a vegetable garden, right, and anyway, long story short, I was able to buy a block of land. I just saved all my money. I think it was just I needed to prove myself. Thought wealth is the one way of proving yourself. Well, that's what I thought, and so I remember I actually one thing. My dad being a bit of buying and selling businesses and what have you. I actually won money through horse racing.
Oh wow!
So what I did, I actually invested in a pinball machine. So I was making money out of that, right? And I ended up, when I got this other job, my old man seen this advert for blocks of land for sale. He goes, "Go and show your boss," because he had a lot of land in the area. Remember, he grabbed me and goes, "Yeah, okay, all right, meet me here on your push bike after work." So he picked me up on the ute, drove down the real estate. On the way down, he said, "How much money have you got?" And I told him, He goes, "Because you're going to need about $1,600. I said, "Yeah, I've got $1,600. So I brought a block of land that night. Like that was, anyway, I'm getting to how I got, So I was looking for ways to build up my self-esteem, although I didn't know it. I've been booted from school. I was always, square pegging a round hole, I suppose. So I was building ways up there. So when I got into boxing, and I just was ducked to water. It was like I started getting a pat on the back. My dad, mum, very encouraging, the best parents ever. They were always encouraging, my biggest, cheer squad. But I had an attitude.
Yeah.
So then I started boxing. I started going really good at it. I started, in that first kind of, I don't know, maybe I think it was about like a season, like a 9-month season. I had like 6 fights and amateur fights. Oh, this is great. And then because I just stayed away from all the old environment. And then I remember my coach saying to me, "You need to have 2 weeks off, mate. You've just been here, like you've trained every day. Like it's all." I was just obsessed. And I remember having 2 weeks off. Oh, that first weekend going back, seeing my old mates and picking up a drink. And that 2 weeks was actually lasted. I didn't get back to the gym for 3 months.
Wow.
And it was like I just had all this time off the alcohol, and I picked it up, and I don't know, I wouldn't say I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. So I remember getting back to the gym, and I fought for about 6 months again and did really good. Had like 6 fights in 6 months, just accelerated. End up was about, fighting the best in the state, Victoria, at that time, and did really good. And end up fighting a bloke that went to the Commonwealth Games, and it was like I was so premature. Should not have ever done that. But anyway, I had a coach that was maybe more enthusiastic than me. Anyway, I remember getting knocked out, and I remember thinking, man. I remember, maybe it's happening or maybe it hasn't. I remember I don't remember really getting hit, but I remember looking up and just the lights are shining. I'm on my back on the camera. Everyone's looking at me. And I remember being so angry, just jumping up, and I wanted to continue the fight. It had been over for minutes. I laugh now, but man, I was stinging, and that's so I actually went way off the rails that time. They said you can't fight for a month, blah blah blah. I wanted to fight him straight away, like I was. So in that month, I picked the drink up again, and that lasted maybe about a year.
Wow.
That drink. It was meant to be a month. A month off out of the gym, etc. And I remember getting back I remember thinking, if I could just get back to the gym, I'll stop drinking. It'll curve things. I remember training a couple of days, and the coach goes to me. It was a different coach. It goes to me because he knew me. He goes, listen, if you train every day this week, I'll get you a fight on Friday night. And I'm like, my thinking was, that will keep me away from those mates of mine. So I remember fighting. I won the fight, and I remember the coach grabbed me straight away and goes, listen, don't drink, go home, and I'll see you at the gym Monday, and we'll do the same. If you train again every day, we'll get you another fight next Friday night. So I'm buzzing from the fight, So I'd done the same thing. Anyway, what it was, which I didn't know after about 3 weeks, because I ended up having 8 fights in 7 weeks.
Wow.
And I wasn't even fit, But what it was like a round robin for the state titles and the Australian titles. And I ended up, coming third in Australia. And I mean, to be honest, I was happy to lose that last fight. I was done. I was tired. I was sore. My nose was broken about 3 weeks into it, in training, and I had to keep fighting with a broken nose. And anyway, but I learned some lessons, But the thing was, then I thought, oh, you know what? I'll have a drink. I've done such a good job, And my dad shifted away up to North Queensland and brought another business up there and whatever. So after a couple of months, I ended up going up there and I was always going to get back to the gym, because I wanted to be a fighter, And I remember he had a caravan park, and I met all these guys from kind of around the world. There wasn't a tourist caravan park. It was one of those ones where backpackers would go and pick fruit from,
Yep.
So it was licorice, all sorts, It was you got everything there. And, so I remember these guys talking to me about Thailand, about different parts of Asia, about Europe, and I'd never known anybody that had kind of gone overseas. Not like that. I mean, we went to Bali for 10 days. That was, it wasn't really. So I started meeting, and there was a couple of older travellers there. Maybe they're probably in their 40s or something, and they were seasoned travellers, And they were telling me stories, and I remember, getting some money together, planting sugar cane and stuff up in North Queensland, and I remember getting some money together, and I remember buying a ticket. Because these guys, I'll meet you over there and I'll meet you over there, I'll meet you here and I'll meet you there. And so I remember, just very naive. I'm probably 19 years of age, and just getting on the plane. I remember being in the old school where you, what do they call it? Travel agents.
Yeah.
Map of the world.
Yep.
I remember saying to the woman, I want to go traveling overseas. She goes, well, where do you want to go? I said, well, where can I go? So she goes, well, there's the map of the world. So I started looking at the map of the world. I thought, hey, Eiffel Tower, go there. Well, she goes, well, you could get 2 stops over there and then stops on the way back. So where do you want to go? Singapore, I'll go there. So that was the planning,
Wow.
And and that's what I did. I remember very naive. I remember flying to Singapore, getting off the plane, and reality hit me. on my own, stone cold sober. Like, where the heck am I? I remember, never forget this guy. He must have spotted me. I was pretty green. He was a New Zealander fella, been travelling for a few years. And he goes, mate, where are you going? I said, no idea. He goes, you got a place to stay? I said, no. He goes, mate, I know a place that'll go, sweet, great. So I remember being there a couple of days in Singapore, and he goes, and I met this other guy in the backpackers, and he goes, hey, I'm going up to Thailand. He heard I was going to Thailand. He goes, I'm going to Thailand. Do you want to go together? I said, what do you mean? Aren't we? No, he goes, we're going to go through Malaysia. We're going to go to Malaysia first and then go to Thailand. And I said, aren't we in Malaysia? He goes, no, we're in Singapore. I said, yeah, isn't Singapore the capital of Malaysia? I was so annoyed. I didn't know.
Wow.
I was, yeah, you get the gifs, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I discovered ecstasy in Thailand and got into that. And, man, it was brutal. It was brutal, those full moon parties, man. And we're talking, over 30 years ago, there was no rules. There was no rules.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to talk about that too much, man. It was brutal, And, I ended up going to the Himalayas with some guys I met there. Ended up in Thailand, Amsterdam. Some fellas there. They said they could get me a job in Amsterdam from guys I met in Thailand. They were actually Jewish. They were from Israel. And, man, it was a mission. But I remember they said to me, listen, you come here, we'll give you a car, we'll give you a job. You come and party with us. Sweet. Anyway, I was selling, what do you say? Throb dust and sun umbrella. That was the Dutch for sunglasses and ties.
Oh, wow, that was your job.
So they give me this car. I go to, they tell me where to go all around Holland. And I go, it was illegal, but we'd open up a big blanket, put all the glasses if it was a sunny day, or ties if it was overcast, and then sell as many as we could before the coppers had come. We'd pack everything up and run away, One time we got pinched, actually. We ended up telling him a good story. It was a younger copper. We told him where to go in Thailand, and so he ended up letting us go. We were fine. But I remember one scary moment. I remember coming home one morning after playing up on all sorts of stuff. And I remember walking through the door in the morning, and for some reason I thought to myself, wonder where that plane ticket, I had to go home, in the old days you get the tickets, not online. And I remember, I don't know how the heck I survived, because in Thailand I ended up giving all my clothes away. I literally had a vest, a bum bag and a sarong. Yeah, I was living on a nudist beach for 2 of those 3 months. It was out there, right? Give everything away. Anyway, I remember finding that ticket and looking at it. It was all wet half a dozen times. I remember thinking, the date, what date is it? Which is not too bad, what. But I remember thinking, all right, I found out what date it was. What month is it?
Oh.
I said, hang on a minute, it's kind of embarrassing to ask people what month is it, Found out what month it was, and I realised I missed my plane home by 3 weeks. And the worst bit was that I was actually in the wrong country. I was meant to be in the UK, and I was still and there was people waiting, that had organised. So I'd missed.
Wow.
I don't know how long. I was out. I remember ringing me dad. Always reverse charges. And I remember him saying to me, mate, do you think you got a problem? And I remember getting off the phone. I remember getting the phone, with the court, and I just started, with the anger, I started bashing this, the end of the phone, and there's this line waiting to use the phone, and there was just I was not in a good place, but something must have struck a chord with me, because I got back to Australia, and there was a family. My sister's boyfriend committed suicide, and I drank with him, and it was just not good. obviously, but I remember that point. Something I knew. Even when that phone rang and they told us, I was there. I knew something had happened. Like I had something, like something, you know, and that was just man, something spiritually happened. I can't. It's hard to explain. I never was. I never sort of told anyone, but something happened. It was like there was something that, because it was just I was with my sister. It was like something that just covered us and kind of looked after us, and how we for those few days that week, and we buried him, and it was just brutal, and but I remember thinking I just got to, my dream was to be a fighter, and of course that month of not having a drink, it was at about the 3-year mark at this point, and I was burning. Like I knew I wanted, but I just couldn't get my act together. So I thought I'm going to go back to my old coach back in Melbourne. I'm up North Queensland, and I stopped on the Gold Coast for 2 days because an old girlfriend that since we were kids, always on and off, but I was always being me, And I heard she was on. It was like I remember ringing her mum, and her mum didn't want to tell me where to give her number. Anyway, I managed to be able to get the number, rang her up, and of course, so I connected with her, and that 2 days ended up being a week. Ended up being, there was all people that were from our hometown that were living here. There's like a dozen of us living in a 2-bedroom unit, and I don't know. It was all of a sudden after about a couple of weeks, everyone left, and it was me and her. And I always loved her my whole life. I just was a mess. And I'm trying to get. I got to a gym. I thought I got to start training again. Blah blah blah. But I just couldn't do it. I got to the point. I remember when what happened was I was sick and tired of people that knew me. Other boxing coaches maybe didn't know me well, but knew of me. They'd say, "Gav, you got so much ability, but where you been? What have you been doing?" And I said, somebody else would bump, "Gav, that was amazing that fought you had. Where have you been though?" And I didn't have an answer. I mean, I could tell them vaguely the locations, but why, I don't know. And I remember. I remember making a decision. I remember getting teed. I was like world champions. They were using me as sparring partners. Like that was an honour to be getting to train with people at that level. And I remember one time where, and I remember taking some drugs before a training session to spar with this champion. I thought, what am I doing, man? What am I doing? I just couldn't wait until after the session. Anyway, I remember making a decision, if I can't do the right thing, I'm going to do the wrong thing. Because I know whatever I do, I know I can be good at it. And it was too hard to do the right thing. I thought, bugger it, I'm just going to do the wrong thing. And so I started knocking around with it. I just progressed the criminal behaviour, etc. Anyway, I ended up this one point where we'd done this robbery, we'd been paid, we got to so we get a wad of cash, with criminals, what do? You go to the casino. So I go to the casino, right? And I remember, well, I don't really remember much, but I remember about 8 o'clock in the morning. We've been there since midnight. I had no cash, everything gone. And I remember the security asking me to leave. And I told them, "You don't tell Gavin Topp what to do." Of course. Anyway, I remember him escorting me down to the car park and giving me a belting. Thought, okay. And then they escort you over the bridge, arm up the back. 6 of them. I've got my arm up. So I had this, and a guy was with me, and I said, "Nah." So I snuck back and got in my car. I've been drinking all night, and I remember driving to the front where those, the big glass doors are. I remember driving around, reversing back to get ready to reverse straight through the double doors to show them, you know. And I remember I go to put it in reverse, and my mate who's with me is screaming his head off. What are you doing? And of course, I look in the rearview mirror, all the security, everyone's looking at me. And I'm about to show them a reverse through the front doors. And something happened. I thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to do this. So I put it in drive, and I drove home. And that guy, I don't think he's ever spoken to me again, actually. He went white. Anyway, I walked through the door, you know, it's about mid-morning, and my girlfriend goes to me. She just looked me in the eye and she goes, you need help. And for that, just that split moment, I just couldn't put the facade up. So no. She goes, jump straight on the phone. She was smart. She goes, you can see a doctor. So we go to this doctor that day, and I start to tell him. He starts to ask me these questions. I start to tell him everything, and he goes to me, and he's just nodding. He's nodding. Yep. He's writing things. Yep. He's nodding. I'm thinking this bloke's awesome. At the end of it, he goes, listen, son, there's not much I can do for you. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, basically, give me a number of a rehab. And I thought, I'm paying you good money to serve me this rubbish. What sort of doctor are you? Anyway, what happened was, I ended up that suicide. My sister's boyfriend, it was 1 year anniversary, so I thought I didn't want her to be on her own. So I flew back to North Queensland to be with her. And I remember getting there, and I thought the first place I wanted to go was the gravesite. And so I go there, and I don't know, I knew I was not in a good way. And I was just thinking about what had happened at the casino the last few months, and the people I was associating with, and I see his name was Jay, and I said, Jay, mate, I don't know if you can hear me, but I need some help. And I hear this, I felt, but I heard this voice say, everything is going to be okay. And I'm like, who's there? And he's Italian, so his family made him a big, room, like a shrine. I remember walking around saying, who am I speaking to? Who else? But this feeling of when I heard and felt that voice, it was like this love, and I'm kind of like half afraid, but it felt good, and I started to think about. And as those days the rest of the afternoon went on, I didn't tell him. I couldn't tell. I didn't know what had happened. But I started to think about when I was a kid, when I was going to commit suicide. I was about 10 years of age. I threw a rope over a rafter, and I stuck my head through the noose, and that same feeling of love and peace sort of come up. And I kind of I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I remember I remember one time with that guy who beat me up one time. I spotted him once, and I was about 16 in this nightclub, and I remember finishing me pot of beer, and I remember walking the toilet and smashing it on the ground, sort of half putting up my sleeve. I thought I'm gonna fix this guy real good, and so I stood sort of half leaned back so he couldn't. I was next to him, but I was kind of facing the other way. I thought on the count of 3, I'm going to glass him in the face. I'm going to sort him out. And I remember going 3, 2, and as I was about to do it, he kind of just walked off. And that feeling of peace and love come on me. I'm like, and I'm remembering all these times through my life when I'm in Thailand, I get chased by these 4 flipping ladyboy, homosexual, and I was running for my life. and I ran off this cliff. I don't know how I didn't break my back, you know. Same thing. It's like I always knew I'd been looked after. I know I was being looked after. I just didn't know how or what. So anyway, so this is going on. I remember I set out that night to just go up my sister, and I wasn't going to drink. And I remember having a drink. And I remember just wasn't working. Just the shame and the guilt. And I'm a big brother, and I'm embarrassing, you know. And you know, like that was, I ended up getting back to the Gold Coast, and you know, I was like, I don't know what to do, you know. And you know, Michelle goes to me, "You're going to go to those meetings?" And I'm like, she goes, "I'll ring up." So she rings up, and she starts having this conversation with this bloke on the other end of the line, and he's saying to her, "Why aren't I on the phone speaking to him?" And I'm like, I'm scared. I didn't know that word existed then, but I was scared. And so he's having an argument. They started arguing. So I picks the phone. I said, "Mate, where the heck are you? I'm going to go and bash this guy for upsetting me girl. I put her through hell, but somebody else upset her. Not good." So he goes, "I'll meet you at Isla Capri, 8 o'clock meeting." Like, "I'll be there. Make sure you're there." I go drive to the meeting. The fear hits me. I'm at the door. There's all these people there. I'm like, I forgot all about that guy. Some bloke welcomes me, sits me down, makes me a cup of tea, and the meeting starts. And the person starts talking about blackouts, starts talking about drink driving, starts talking about violence, starts talking about regrets, shame. And I'm thinking, my girlfriend's, she's told everyone about me. She's given me up. Then the next person says similar thing, talks about missed opportunities, talks about regret. And I'm thinking, I'm going to kill her. By the time the end of the meeting happened, I thought, I'm exactly the same as these people. And I'm thinking, a guy approached me that I didn't know. I met him, but I didn't know him. And he was from the boxing gym. He'd been an Australian champion when he was younger. Anyway, so he sits me down and starts to talk to me, and I'm like real cagey, you know, like I don't I've been given up here. I don't want to give myself up anymore. And he just knew how to talk to me. And it was like he put his fingers in my chest. And he goes, "Son, there's something in you that only you can fulfill. There's a mission. There's a purpose." And I'm like, "I know that. How do I get from here to there? Just tell me what to do. I'll do it." And he goes, "Don't drink from now to tomorrow, the next meeting, and just do that." I said, "I'll do that, but tell me, what have I got to do?" He goes, "Just do that." I said, "Tell me. I need to know." Like, he goes, "Don't drink and I'll see you tomorrow." He goes, "Settle down, son." Emotions are unregulated. So I did that. And then I said, "All right, what do I got to do?" He goes, "Don't drink from now to the next meeting, and I'll see you then." I said, "Then you're going to tell me?" He goes, "Then I'll tell you the next thing." So I got a few days, I got a week. They turned it into a week. I started to say, hang on a minute. I started hearing stories. I started hearing about people creating a life. I remember they started reading out of this book, and they talked about the promises. If you keep doing this, the promises that come. And I remember them saying about this guy started to read this book, and he goes, that you will have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I said, listen, mate, I'm in. Don't overdo it. It's too thick. You're laying it on too thick, you know. I've been hanging around with would-be gangsters, with flipping, you know, like, mate, I'm in, but just don't ruin it for me. You know, my hopes were low, you know. And you know, after a few months, you know, I just would either go to an AA meeting. I endeavoured to go to a rehab. I got kicked out. Didn't last a day. So it's like, Gav, you're going to do it the hard way, son. You know. So I kept going to meetings, and then I got a mentor. You know, and then one mentor introduced me to another mentor, and it's almost like I needed a group of men to really wrestle me into submission type of thing. And basically between those meetings, I trained. I went to the gym, I went to a meeting, I went for a run, I went to another meeting, I went to sleep. I got up, I went to a meeting, I ran, I went to another meeting, I went to the gym, I went to another meeting. So I started doing, I remember about a year mark, I thought I got to get some money as well, you know, like and I was too afraid to really go back to any environment. So I got this job washing dishes. It was like, you know, I remember thinking, I don't want to go back to, you know, I can't. And I want something that can, you know, that gives me time to go to meetings, to train, etc. So I get this job washing dishes. And I remember it was about 2 months, and it was going good, you know. I mean, when I say going good, I was staying sober, and I was training, and I started getting a couple of fights, and then I remember me going to the gym, and my coach goes to me, "Hey, listen, there's an opportunity to fight on Fox Sports," and I'm like, inside I'm in, but I'm out. Like, how? What? This is too much. This is too big, you know. But he believed in me. He said I could do it. And you know, I said, I'll take it. I remember having that fight. I remember it was brutal. It's actually on the Gavin Topp YouTube channel. Somebody put it on. Steve Willett. It was a brutal fight, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, it was just at another level. And Stevie Willett, just an absolute journeyman, just amazing fighter, tough. Goodness me. And I remember me getting a cut eye, and I remember, and he was dirty too. I remember the refs on one side of me, you know, splitting, breaking us up, and he's on the other side, and he's got his glove, and he's just grinding it into my cut eye. It's like, you blind referee, like, what? Anyway, you watch the replay, you can see it. Steve Wood, absolute champion fella. We connected many years later. But I remember getting back to wash dishes a couple of nights later. I remember the bloke who ran the joint. He says to me, "Was that you on Fox Sports the other day?" I said, "Yeah, that was me." And I just kept washing dishes. You know, I want this job. I need this job. Like, you know, but I remember starting to fight Fox on a regular basis, and I think, you know, like those mentors, those coaches that I had some great, some champion men that helped me stay sober. Some other boxing coaches, and then a couple of those guys started to introduce me to these rites of passages. I could start to see what I'd been looking for. You know, like every man, in the DNA of every man is a warrior.
So just to ask on that, because obviously you started to make a change, something clicked. Was it the people that were around you? Was it because obviously that guy started to believe in you and could see there was something there. Was it the belief in you that somebody had? Was it having a group of people around the environment that made the difference? What was it that made the difference for you, that made you, put you on that track?
Yeah. Well, I'd always had people that believed in me. So it was that, but maybe there was something else. Because I suppose they were aware of the initiation and validation process. And like I said, in the DNA of every man's a warrior. But there's two sorts of warriors. There's trained and there's untrained. And when I was younger, I was untrained. Even when I was training as a fighter, I was untrained. Like, I could fight. I was, but I was untrained. I didn't have the wisdom to go with it.
So when you say untrained, was it the wisdom or the ability to be in control of your emotions and
Both.
focus and
Both.
things? Okay.
Like, man, inside that ring, remember the three men inside that ring, that guy, sometimes that guy inside, he'll have a tantrum. It's not going my way. Yeah, but that's where, I remember one thing that my dad said to me, but I never got it till down the track. He go, an angry guy, an angry man's an easy man to fight. He's predictable. It's when you poker face, no matter how. And I remember there was one time we were at these horse shows when I was young, and I think it's a very good story to understand around that validation and how it can work, how it is working, because some of them are being validated for the wrong thing and performing, So we're at this horse show, and I'm like 13 at the time, and it was like a 3-day event. And I remember we had a couple of horses. We go to put our horses in these stalls, and this guy comes in. He had 10 horses, had strappers, big Mercedes-Benz truck, and he's a big bloke, and he's barking orders, and he put his horse in our stalls. And my dad said to him, "Hey, listen, mate, I think you're in my stalls." And the bloke says to me, "Dad, mate, nick off down those the shitty ones down the end there." And my dad said to him, by that time, the atmosphere had changed in these stables. It's like everyone's watching us. And my dad says, "Listen, I'm going to go and double check this is my stalls. I'm going to be back in 5 minutes. If those horses aren't out, I'm coming for you." And I'm shaking as a kid, I'm shaking. We go back, we come back in 5 minutes, they're out, we put our horses in, etc. And so my dad goes to me later that day, and he sat me down, he goes, "You know what happened today?" I said, "Yeah, I know what happened today." He told me a story. He goes, when I was young, my dad was in jail, right? And he was there at that time. There was a couple of guys who murdered a taxi driver, right? And so my dad was in the pen with these guys, and one of them befriended him, right? And at the end of the day, they go back to their cells. The guy goes to me, "Dad, I like your shoes." And my dad goes, "Thanks." He goes, "Give me your shoes." And my dad said to me, "Listen, we fought. I kept my shoes, right? We don't take rubbish off anybody. What's ours, we take. We don't cop crap. We never take a backward step." He goes, "You are," and which I know, he goes, "You are the spit out of my mouth." I know I'm exactly like my dad. He goes, "Mate, we don't take rubbish off anybody." And so when he said that, no one's tougher than we are. We're tops. We don't take crap off anybody. So that was like an impartation. So as I got sober, all these things were coming back to me. When I started to learn about this validation, this initiation, my old man had been doing them in a funny sort of way, the best that nobody showed him. But so there was times in that boxing ring when I didn't have 30 people watching me get belted. I had 1.2 million people watching me. But I remember there was times where I thought, I don't know, it doesn't matter how hard it is, how painful it is, how fatigued, it doesn't matter. I can out-tough this guy. He can't take more crap than me. I can out-tough anyone. I remember there's quite a few times. So I suppose as I started going through those rite of passage, there's things every person can draw on. That no matter what sort of a past you've had, there's good stuff. There's gold if you go looking. So I remember there was times where I thought, I can't do this, but I knew I could hang on. I could just tough it out. And I remember having fights where almost like I can't. If I feel like this, he looks like who's going to give in? And then they take a backward step. Like, gotcha.
So that grit, I guess, to take the title of a book, that was something that was in you, I guess, planted from your dad in a way.
Yeah.
But had been squashed, or was it still there?
I think it needed to be uncovered.
Right.
I think, it had been, I think if we look, every person listening here, there's treasure everywhere. God didn't make any accidents.
Yeah.
And I mean, like all these things we can build on. I remember, I remember there was one point around that season, fighting on Fox Sports regular, starting to go real good. And I remember the coach comes, we'll get an opportunity to fight for a Commonwealth title. I'm like, wow. But it was in the next weight division, etc. And I was like, I'll go, I'll do it. I'm like, man, I'm on a roll here, And anyway, so we take the fight, and it's in Canada, man. And I remember I was training so hard. I had a business going. I had a dozen blokes working, because all these opportunities start happening when you're the champ. Everyone wants to be your friend. Not everyone. People come out the woodwork, which good people. I'm not saying negative, good people. And so I got this business going, and a dozen men working for me, and so I'm pushing hard there. I'm pushing hard at training. I married my wife. We've got I'm 5 years sober, and so we'll take this fight. And I remember leading up to the fight, I get this like chronic fatigue. I was just like, I've cooked myself. It's like, so they managed to be able to postpone the fight. And this guy's ranked number 6 in the world. Like, it's another level to what I'm used to. Long story short, we get over there. The second preparation works. I come good. Takes me a few months. I come good. Get over there, and it's winter, man, in Edmonton, Canada. Man, it's like 20 below. Go from a Gold Coast summer to, it's like the worst, man. Anyway, after about 3 days, I'm in the gym, I'm hitting the pads, I'm thinking, this guy's in trouble. I'm on, And I'm having radio interviews, TV interviews. I'm like, got to do the whole thing, get over about 10 days before. And about the 5th day, I just didn't feel like I was just a little bit off. And then about the 6th day, I'm thinking, I feel terrible today. And then the 7th day, I'm thinking, it feels like that's coming back. So by the time the 10th day, the day of the fight, I go to I walk in the dressing rooms, I sit down for a rest, and I go to get changed. I can't even do my boots up. I'm just exhausted. And there's like 10,000 people there. They're telling me, brought tickets. There's it's televised in 32 countries. I mean, you can't say I don't feel like it tonight. Yeah. There's a lot. You're committed. So I remember thinking, oh my goodness. So I remember there was this little room, a door next to the dressing rooms where I'm getting changed. So I get up and I walk in there, and it's dark. I close the room, and I slouch down, and I'm like, and that feeling of peace and love comes on me again. Like every couple of years it turn up, and I'm like, God, what are you doing? Like, why have you got me here? And then it was like my grandmother, where I used to live a lot when I was younger. And she always had, all my life, she had this old school picture of Christ when you walk in her front door. And I don't know, I always, look at it. And she'd take me when I was a kid, and I'd live with her, and she'd take me to the Catholic church and stuff. And I'm in the dark. I've slouched down. I'm meant to be warming up. There's 10,000 people waiting, and I get this picture in my mind of this Nana's picture of Christ in her doorway, and I'm like, and that feeling of love comes on me again. I'm like, God, are you Jesus? Like, is this? And then I remember saying to myself, your timing is way out. Like, I have to fight tonight. And it was like, as I said that feeling of love and peace kind of left me. And I remember thinking, I just made a mistake. And my coach opens the door and says, mate, we're on. And I'm like, I didn't know what really had happened. So talk about a lamb being led to the slaughter, man. I remember walking out through the crowd. I hadn't warmed up. He did me boots up, and he's trying to raise the dead in me. And I remember it about seeing those international rules. There's no standing 8 count, so you either fight or you're knocked out, or you take a knee. You give up, And on the top, you don't give up. It's not an option. So I remember about the third round, he's hitting me flush on the chin. And I remember, like, I don't know if you've ever been hit like this, but I remember it was like your body goes into shock. You're like, this must be hurting, but I can't feel nothing. I remember thinking maybe my legs broke because I'm going one way, I'm back the other, like my legs weren't doing their job. But I stayed on my feet, and I remember being able to grab him, and there's a technique that you grab them like that with their arms through, you kind of like you'd be able to hold them like, and I get my head over his shoulder so he can't hit me from that spot. And I'm thinking about what had happened before in the dressing rooms, and I says, God, all I want is a fight I can be proud of. That's all I want. The referee's trying to pull us apart. I'm hanging on. Eventually, he's got to, mate, you're going to be disqualified if you don't let go, let go. Then I remember round 6, the coach helped me off the stool saying, you're halfway. And I'm like, how did I get this far? And then I remember the 9th round where same thing happened, where I was all over the place and stayed on my feet. And I remember because I was like, I don't know, I don't remember. But I remember him saying, son, you got 3 minutes to go. It's the last round. For God's sake, will you just stay out of his way? And I get up on my feet going, how have I done 11? And I remember thinking, I'm here. So I went for it. And I'm pretty sure I won the last round. I think he was exhausted from belting me for 11. But I remember at the end of the fight, he won 11 rounds. They put his hand up, and somebody come from behind and put my hand up and started to lead me around the ring. And I go around this side, standing ovation. That side, standing ovation. It's like all I could think about was that prayer I prayed. Just give me a fight I can be proud of. I thought, he's given me what I asked for, even though I turned my back. It's like, and of course, man, I was sore. I was belted. And I remember it probably took me about a month, I reckon, to get over it. It was brutal. And, man. But I see in the world's eyes, I was very successful because that block of land that I had, and then when I'd sat it there, it was just sitting there. So that when I got sober and then started fighting on Fox Sports, I started to get some purses. And I remember I've always been a risk taker. I love risk. It's the way God made me, man. But I remember doing some research. Well, my wife really done the work and said, we can actually buy a house with that land. So I remember buying a house. Like, whoa. And then I remember we had 4 houses. Right, I got this business. I've gone, because in that first couple of months, before I got that job washing dishes, we had to get food vouchers. Like, there was not enough money to last till the next check, So we've gone from 4 houses, the Champ, from food voucher, like it was a fast. And it was like we just brought another house and I'm sitting there and I got these push bikes to the kids, etc. And then my wife goes, and I remember just started to think about what had happened at that fight because I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. I didn't know how to articulate what had happened. And literally she turns and goes, because she had these annoying Christians hanging around her, which were driving me crazy. Very nice people, but very irritating. She goes, hey, they've invited us to this Easter play thing. And I'm like, it'll be a cheap night out for the kids. That was my thinking. So we go home, go down. And there was a couple of other things that happened that day. I was in a police chase. Anger was coming to the surface, and it's easy to brush over that, I suppose, police chase anyway. But I remember walking in the door of this church. And I remember on the way there, I realised I actually didn't even know what Easter was about. Like I knew it was about eggs. I remember walking in the front door of the church, like the foyer bit, and I just burst into tears, thinking, oh my goodness. I'm trying to hide and I'm thinking, who's that? Well, I hope nobody sees me who knows me. Like in my head, I'm a legend. I'm the champ. And I'm crying like a baby trying to find a dark spot to hide, And then of course it starts. And it was like, I still don't know what happened that night in regards to the production, but what happened was God started to show me pictures of all the times he'd looked after me, how he'd saved me from hanging myself, from that feeling of peace and love. He was looking after me when I was going to glass that guy in the nightclub, when I was getting chased in Thailand, when I missed 3 weeks in Holland. Like he just looked after me, and he got me to this point, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I remember towards the end, I kind of realised that. See, my parents loved me to bits, okay, but there was a time where I'd heard things that probably most people hear things you shouldn't hear, but I remember there was a time because my dad was in and out of jail a few times, and my mum was not meant. I was an accident. My mum was never meant to get pregnant, and I remember there was a conversation about how they were. People in the family who loved me, mum, they were trying to adopt me out. And, she didn't, And I remember that play, I remember coming to a scripture where it said that God called you and knew you before time even began, that he had a plan and he had a purpose, and that and I heard he needed a Gavin Topp. So he made a Gavin Topp, a bloke who could tough it out and go through all that other rubbish so others wouldn't have to. And that's kind of, I'm okay. I always look after the underdog. That's just who I am. And I thought to myself, I always knew God was with me. I just didn't know Jesus was connected. I just didn't know. And so and I remember them talking about I remember thinking, do you know what? I'm actually not even game to try and do it my way anymore. Like I said, I'd been in a car chase that day with the police. I'd been going to bash a guy in the milk bar that day because I thought he'd said something to me. And I'm the champ. Like I had everything the world that I thought would make you happy, or the real estate, the family, and I was not happy. Like I remember thinking, I've done my best. I've tried my hardest, and man, the result is 0. And I remember talking about if you would like to give your life to Christ, put your hand up. And I remember looking around and my hand was up. I thought, who's going to see me? And I pulled my hand down. I thought, who's seen me? Like, this is embarrassing. But then I thought, well, what options do I have? Like, I did my best my way. And really that was the start of the journey, really. That just got me to the starting post.
So you had all this stuff, the success, you're champion, everything's going, but at the same time, there was nothing.
I think there was something.
You felt like there was nothing.
No. I think there was something, but it was ego. It was pride. It felt real.
Yeah.
Plenty of pats on the back. I had properties. I had cars. I had, buying brand new. I'm on TV. Everywhere I went, people said, hey. I had everything. It wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. It wasn't
fulfilling.
I was not fulfilling.
Yeah.
But that's I think the biggest thing was I thought to myself, I can't keep this up. I can't keep this pace up. I'm close to being cooked here.
You know what? I reckon there's a lot of people in that place right now, and people watching, listening to this right now, I think in exactly that same place.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to face it.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They feel like, well, I've got all this. I should be happy. I should be fulfilled. There should be something there.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people?
Yeah. There's one name. His name's Jesus. He's the way, the truth, and the life. It says you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, you'll be saved. And for a bloke like I was, they're the people I make fun of. That would be my humour. They're easy targets.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like I suppose most of us have been exposed to religion, but I didn't know. Like this was a relationship. And as I've gone on, I've realised he come for me. I didn't chase him. I ran away from him, but he chased me down. He come for me all those moments. He was there. He was waiting for me to say, hey, even in like that Canada, Edmonton, in that freezing, brutal cold, the worst place in the world for me at that time, like the loneliest place, he was there. Because it's happened to me a few times. I remember one time fighting for a world title eliminator in Berlin, Germany. And I remember, you have crazy thoughts. Like under pressure, remember the real guy comes. You hear that, under. Yeah. And I remember it's happened over the years. I fought for 18 years, where people that end up with brain damage. I know people that have passed a day after the fight with head injuries. Like, the thought comes. I remember being in that spot in the dressing rooms waiting in the hotel before I went to the dressing rooms. I remember thinking, man, I could die. This is at the highest level. Like, I win this fight. It was a world title eliminator. The winner out of me and this guy, we fight for the world. We fight the best in the world. Like, this is dangerous. I started thinking about my kids, my wife. Like, but I remember that even that particular point. I remember a cornerman with me. He started to pray. Started to pray in tongues. He started to call out to the one who come after me many times, the one who's omnipresent. I remember the peace and love falling on me again. I remember that walkout, man. It's the best walkout I've ever had. In front of thousands of people. Yeah, I remember speaking. I'm in Germany. I'm just praying in tongues, walking down the, man, I don't know what the language they thought I was talking about. But hey, my identity is not in my performance. My identity is the one who made me, called me. I'm a son of the King. I am the son of Jack Topp. Nobody takes crap of anyone. But I'm also the son of the King, the one who made everything.
So you now take that, well, you did for a little while, and you trained guys to get in the gym.
Yeah.
What would you say was probably three of the main things that you were actually able to help impart into those guys that got them to a new space?
Yeah. I suppose, because that boxing program, Fight Like a Pro, ran for like 10, 11 years. And everyone does it for a different reason. Some blokes would sign up and don't even know. I remember vividly blokes saying, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Because remember, the qualifier is that you'd never had a boxing match. That was, and then you're going to fight at the casino. By the way, I was allowed back in the casino. when you're paying them a lot of money, they make allowances. So, so it's different for each guy. So we start from a different place, Everyone's, we all start at week one, day one and week one, but we all had a different past history, Some guys are there to get their families back. Other guys get there because they want to lose 10 kilos. Other guys are there because they got demons in them and they don't know how to deal with them. The anger issues. And I'm talking about men that are successful in the world's eyes, that have all the bells and whistles. I'm not talking about the down and out, So one thing that I suppose through that first period, well, I always loved the first couple of weeks was all about fitness, defense. Blokes go, man, I'm feeling amazing in front of the mirror. This is awesome. And then normally what I do is always about week 2 start sorting out cornermen. Blokes are going to be in your corner. And some of them they train with you. Normally there'd be a couple of guys. Three cornermen or 4 cornermen would look after maybe 2 fighters. So it sort of always had somebody, but it was trained as a group, but you'd have a group within the group, So we'd always be building them up, pointing out their good stuff, and normally what would happen is eventually you got to get the rubber to hit the road. You got to get this stuff. Does it actually work? So you start sparring. And the amount of guys that would have a reality check, I've just been hit. Well, what have you been training for? So there'd be a lot of blokes that would be what I would say living in a false economy in their mind, thinking they're something they weren't. Doing it for a long time, you get to hear it, where blokes in their 40s and 50s start talking about some grand final, they won the grand final and what have you, and as it turns out, it was under 15s. But they're still hanging on to stories.
Yeah.
They stop being a warrior. They stop doing things for the first time. They started to pursue comfort rather than mission.
How important is it for men to actually have that warrior inside of them to come out, to be a real man, to stand up? And obviously nowadays with this toxic masculinity and other things that's going on, people can take this the wrong way, but take it the right way if you're listening or watching this.
Yeah.
Because I think the more we have strong, well-adjusted men, the stronger our world and society is going to be. Because they actually are protectors. They're warriors. They look after people. They help people. They don't diss people. How important is it to bring that out in men?
Well, mate, I'm going to say something, and this is probably going to offend some people. Toxic and masculinity do not belong together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. Either you got a masculine man or you've got a toxic man.
Love
You
it.
have it. You don't.
That is so
All
good.
that toxic is just a man who is undeveloped and looking to talk himself up, prove himself in a way that's untested, unchallenged. You know, like I mean, you know, probably many people have done it. Think, buy a new red ute, buy a brand new car. How good do I? How cool am I? That ute's going to get dirty. Maybe even like me, you're going to roll that ute. Yeah, you know, like that's not masculinity. That's just an undeveloped boy. That's a male who's undeveloped. You know, maybe looks like a man, but he's really a boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but when it comes to like our society, man, we lean on strong men. Strong in character, strong in all those, you know, strong in faith. That's why I was able to, through those periods, there was a 4.5 year period, we supported a women's shelter that were getting 100 women a year, plus children out of domestic violence situations.
Wow.
You know, we built 6 units for them, and it was all donated by men. You know, men made a way. Man, there was some men that I introduced to that come through the program and said, man, these guys need a hand. You know, they would donate some time each week. There was sometimes, normally monthly, we would take between 30, 40 men down there and just sun up to sundown and work and be. Just do whatever had to be done. Yeah. So
what would you say was a real man compared to a toxic man?
Well,
I know you gave a bit of a definition there.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit further into that.
Well, I suppose a bloke who is performance-based is toxic. You know, you got to be performing. You got to be talking yourself up. You got to, I mean, it's easier. When you've been initiated and validated, you don't need to talk yourself up. You don't need to prove yourself. You know, the way, but the thing is, the only thing that can validate a man is another man, somebody who you look up to, whose integrity inspires you. Whereas sometimes when we're boys, it's just who's popular. Some people, I mean, I'm probably going to cop some flack for this, but this is what I see. I see men doing some breathing exercises in the bush and calling that masculinity. Hey, good to breathe, love the bush. But calling it masculinity, not masculinity. I see other men doing cold plunges. I love cold plunges. That's not masculinity. Everyone should be doing them. But don't call it masculine. You know what is that clear?
Yep.
You know, look, what does a man? A man takes responsibility for his children even when it's not comfortable. You know, for me, and this is one thing I believe that will define a man is by the oaths that he lives by. I talk about it in my Rite of Passage book, GavinTopp.com. Check it out. So for me, this is what really impacted my early days when I started to look at these Rite of Passage, when I started to show them that, you know, you're going to live by your oaths, by your agreements you make with yourself. First oath I ever made was around alcohol. Not any, not ever, no negotiation. Haven't had a drink from that day to this, 30 plus years. You know, I said to my wife, listen, it's about the future and not about the past. I want to marry you. So will you marry me? She goes, yeah, of course. You know, I said, but it's till death. There's no plan B. Whatever happens, we're going to get through this, whatever. You know, it's till death. You got to die to get out of this. She laughs out, I will raise you from the dead. Don't you dare try and die. You know, so I mean, one of my oaths is to show my children that dreams can come true. Hence, I've got to be living dreams. I've got to be always talking about it. I've got to be doing it. You know, one of my wife's an amazing supporter of mine, the best. You know, one of my oaths that I created a few years back is though her dreams would come true. So she always wanted to spend some time overseas. So hence in 23, her heritage, her father was born in Malta. And so we're going to Malta. Let's go to Malta. I go, so for a season. It was over 2 years. It was a big season. But just to spend that time living in a village, having an adventure, living an adventurous life. You know, well, men lead. I mean, women lead as well. But if men don't step up and lead, man, really, that's how the families are going to flourish. You know, and it's hard, and you can't do it on your own. The lone wolf thing, it's a fantasy. If you think you can make it on you, man, this is what I do, right? I'll go anywhere on the planet to get the right men in my life. That's why my mentor lives in Florida. Like last year, I went there 3 times. Keep up skill, keep up skill, keep up skill. You know, he's the best man in the world I know for teaching me business from a biblical based. So I found this is the best guy in the world. I'm going to make him my friend.
I love that. And it's so important. I actually just did a reel this morning about who you got in your corner.
Yeah.
Because it's absolutely critical.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest things, like you said, what are those men going through that boxing program? You learn, I learned this in my early days as a fighter, right? That your cornerman can see what you can't. Because in a fight, sometimes, like you can't see. Like it's happening so fast. Like you're getting hit. I remember I had fights, I'm sure there's 3 of them. But I remember that first fight, my corner, when I really caught my attention, the guy goes, cornerman says, listen, Gav, punch straight. I didn't know I wasn't.
Yeah, right.
And I was copping a belting. He goes, punch straight, get you right in front of your face and punch straight. And of course, it turned the fight around. So I couldn't wait to get back to the guy and say, now what do I do? You know? So that really helped me, and particularly when that's what a lot of guys see go through the, that Fight Like a Pro program, is that you got to learn to trust this guy, man. He can see he's been there before. He's done it. He can help you.
That's awesome. Mate, we've I think gone over time a little bit, but hey, that's cool. It's fantastic, and what you've had to say is incredible. And when it comes to this sort of thing, I don't know of anyone better or more qualified to be able to talk about this than you. So I really appreciate you coming in. Question we ask always at the end of the podcast: how do you create the life you want and leave a legacy that you're proud of?
Mate, you want me to keep this short?
Yeah.
What I do now is called the Man Alive Experience. And the first 20 weeks is getting a crystal clear vision of your purpose and the mission for your life. Most men get about 8-10 weeks in and go, you know what? I've actually known what I wanted to do my whole life. I just got talked out of it or I made a mistake. So, all right, in short, man, to be successful, know your purpose, develop yourself for that purpose, and that's where most men fall down. They're undeveloped. They don't develop. They know what their purpose is, but they don't develop themselves, and then deploy yourself in that purpose, like a soldier's deployed into a mission. You know. So when you have the courage, and for me, I go through, there's a whole heap of teachings there, step by step, that actually, 80% of the men go, how did I not see this? And then when you can have the right men around who actually deploy yourself in it and even monetize your mission and your purpose, man, that's how you create a legacy that's a part of yours. One of the reasons we went to Malta, took my wife to Malta, her family have 2 properties there. One's 430 years old. Her father was born there 70 plus years ago. Her grandmother, who's passed that I knew when we were younger, she was born there. Her family still live there.
Yeah, wow.
In the middle of that house, there's a well. I wanted to taste that water. That's where their water source. They still, all these years, they drink that water. So I wanted my kids to drink that water. I mean, long answer, man. You know, legacy is happening right now. It's a question of, are you conscious of what you're actually creating? It's happening. Everyone's leaving a legacy, but are you leaving the one that you want?
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's why, again, we spent those like 2 years in Europe in the middle of the Mediterranean, small island, 8 kilometres by 5 kilometres. On a clear day, you could see Sicily 20 odd miles away, you know, like beautiful. I wanted to spend that time with my family. Let's get rid of the distractions. You know, 7 kids, man. And anyone who's got kids, you know, you don't have them for long. So that's, you know, either you don't, I always say when it comes to your purpose, you either know your purpose and you're pursuing your purpose, or by default, you end up pursuing somebody else's. So it's probably the most important question you need to have an answer for is, what is my purpose?
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Wow. That wow. I'll leave it there.
Tell me.
You're going to say something.
I was going to say something that I made a little while ago. If you go to GavinTopp.com, is the 8 biggest mistakes successful men are making.
Nice.
And I've never had anyone go through that teaching and got it all nailed.
Yeah.
Like most of it unconsciously are making a couple of mistakes. And you know, you've only got to be 1 degree off today, and by the end of the week, you're 7 degrees. The end of the end of a decade, blokes go, how the heck did I end up here?
Yeah, it's so true.
So they say GavinTopp.com, man, go to those. It's a gift. I mean, there's other things there,
That's
ebooks.
Awesome. And it's funny, none of us, we think we've got it nailed sometimes, but none of us have. None of us have.
I know I haven't.
That was my question, is so people can go there. How else can they find you, hook up with you, connect with you?
There's a YouTube, Gavin Topp YouTube channel, but, you know, Gavin Lance Topp Instagram. But, if you just go to GavinTopp.com, man, grab that 8 biggest mistakes, or grab it. Even I would suggest the first book I ever made was purely out of just to be able to help people. Is that Rite of Passage for the Modern Man, where I had guys, I wanted to help them, but they couldn't come and do that 10-week program. So I made that short book. You read it in 40 minutes. I go through the 7 pillars of a Rite of Passage. I would say, this is what I say, like, grab a mate and do it with him. It's a short book. There's all sorts of organisations that have got that book and taken you through those 7 pillars. But everyone needs it. If you got a set of nuts, you need to know what these pillars are.
Settles it. Gavin, thank you so much for coming in. Such a pleasure, and your stories and your journey and the whole lot. And you've rounded it up and ended on what a man actually is. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks for coming on Tomorrow's Not Today podcast.
Amen. Thank you, mate. Ciao.